May I start?
Good evening to all the participants. Today we thank Hemlata ma'am and Sandil Kumar sir for taking a joint session on cash loans. In other words, am I audible?
Yes, audible.
In other words, on section 269 SS and 271D of the Income Tax Act. So the again the same rules will apply. The question answer session will be at the end. So whenever if you have any questions at the end, you can raise your hands in the app, or you can just send a message in the chat box. The chat box has been is already there's no hello.
I'm hearing you.
Okay, there's some disturbances here. Sorry. I've enabled the chat box so everyone can send messages. So, but please refrain from sending any messages in the initial stages itself, because there can be some bandwidth error also. So, thank you everyone, and thank you Hemlata ma'am and Sandil Kumar sir for today's session. Ma'am, you can start.
Good evening, everybody. The section before this flow is 269 SS and 269 T, read with section 271D and 271E of the Income Tax Act. So those who are familiar in this section will refresh by dusting the income tax book. Those who are not familiar will learn together. Now let us see the legislative intention of this section 269 SS. The section was introduced to curb the black money. Previously, what happened during the course of the raid proceedings? In the income tax authorities unearthed some unaccounted money or the hidden money. The culprit escapes by saying that I received a loan from a friend or relatives. To plug the loopholes, to put an end to the false explanation or spurious explanation of the taxpayers, this provision has been introduced. Jayalakshmi, next slide. Next, please, next slide. This provision falls under the Chapter 20B. 20B introduced in the year 1981. The chapter contains the four provisions: 269 SS, 269 ST, and 269 T, and 269 TT. Next slide, please. Now we are going to see only the two sections, 269 SS and 269 T. 269 SS was introduced in the year 1984. What the provision says: any person shall take or accept from any person a loan or deposit or specified sum only by way of account-based check or account-based demand draft, or by using the electronic mode of clearing system, if the amount or the aggregate amount is 20,000 rupees and more. Subsequently, in the year 2015, the section underwent some changes. The specified sum was inserted by the Finance Act 2014 with effect from 1/4/2015. Let us see the meaning of the specified sum that is explained in the explanation class. Specified sum means any amount or advance by cash where it relates to the transfer of immovable property, whether the transfer takes place or not. For instance, suppose I am selling my property. The consideration received in cash. That cash is coming under the ambit of 269 SS. In another instance, suppose I am selling the property for the worth of 2 crores. I received advance in cash and 1.5 crores in check. The 50 lakhs is coming under the ambit of 269 SS. That is the provision says. Subsequent, next slide, please. Now we are going to see the exception classes. First proviso. The first proviso says the section shall not apply to any loan or deposit or specified sum accepted from by the government or any banking company or post office, saving bank or cooperative bank. any corporation established by a central state or provincial act, any government company defined under section 245 of the Companies Act, any institution or association which was notified by the central government in the official gazette. So all the five are the exception classes to the section 269 SS. Next slide, please. Now let us have a look on the flow chart. The second provision. The section will not be applicable if the person from whom loan or deposit is taken has an agricultural income or total income is less than the maximum amount not chargeable to tax, and the section will not be applicable if the person who is taking the loan or deposit has an agricultural income and total income, I can say the income from all heads of income, is less than the maximum amount not chargeable to tax. Precisely saying that the section shall not apply to the person from whom the loan is taken and the person who is taking the loan has an agricultural income or total income is less than the taxable limit. That is the provision says. Let us move on to the next slide. Now let us see the provision 269T. What the provision says. Any banking company or cooperative bank or any firm or any society shall repay the loan or deposit or specified advance only by way of account pay check or account pay demand draft or by using the electronic clearing system if the amount along with the interest is 20,000 rupees and more. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. The first provision is also a exception classes. Suppose a repayment is by way of by the banking company or the cooperative bank by transferring the amount in the SB account or the current account for the person, the deposit has to be repaid is also exempted from the provision of 269T. Now let us see the second proviso. The provision says that the section shall not apply to the repayment of a loan or deposit or specified advance taken or accepted from the government, any banking company, post office, saving bank or cooperative bank, any corporation established by a central, state or provincial act, any government company defined under section 617 of the Companies Act, any institution, association which was notified by the central government in the official gazette. So all the five classes are totally, the section shall not apply. Next slide, please. Now let us see the penalty for the above sections. Next slide, please. Next slide. Just have a look of the chart. Violation of section 269 SS. If the violation of section 269 SS, penalty under section 271D is leviable. With the violation of section 269T, penalty under section 271E is leviable. Next slide, please. Now let us see the provision of 271D penalty. If there is any violation of the section 271D, the person is liable to pay a penalty, a sum equivalent to the loan or deposit or specific sum accepted or taken. The penalty shall be imposed by the Joint Commissioner. Next slide, please. Next slide. Yeah, thank you. Suppose in the section 271(1)(e) says that the person is, if there is any violation of 271(e), the penalty can be imposed a sum equivalent to the loan or deposit or specified advance repaid. The penalty shall be imposable only by the Joint Commissioner. Next slide, please. Now let us see the violation of the section. Violation of section 269 SS. Suppose assessor is able to prove the genuineness of the transaction. If there is no black money or unaccounted money, penalty under section 271D is leviable. Suppose the assessor is not proved the genuineness of the transaction, it is considered to be a black money or unaccounted money. Black money or unaccounted money. The addition has to be made to the total income under section 68, that is cash credit, and tax calculated on the addition under section 68. The second part actually is saying that 269T. Suppose the assessee is able to prove the genuineness of the transaction, that is not a black money or unaccorded money, the penalty under section 271E is leviable. Suppose on the other side, no. The amount has to be calculated or added to the total income under section 69, that is unexplained investment, and the tax has been calculated on the amount. That's what the provision says. Next slide, please. Now let us see the provision 273B. The penalty cannot be imposed in certain cases. The penalty cannot be imposed if the assessee is able to prove the reasonable cause for not complying the conditions stipulated in the 269 SS. Let us see the word reasonable cause. A fact or circumstances which justifies the situation. For instance, now we are in the lockdown period. We have a medical emergency. We cannot receive the amount by way of demand draft or upon paycheck. Cash can be entertained. So this is the cause, reasonable cause. Let us see the meaning of the sufficient cause. Sufficient cause means any excuses which is authorized by law. The section spells out only the reasonable cause. So the responsibility cast upon the assessee to prove the reasonable cause for not complying the conditions stipulated in the section 269 SS. I think this section is the advocate's paradise. Assessee get rid of the penalty by using only this provision 273B. Next slide, please. Next slide. 274. So procedure for penalty. Like any other enactment, the penalty can be levied by issuing a so-cause notice, that is a reasonable opportunity, and the section mandates the personal hearing. Next slide, please.
Hemlata ma'am, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Oh yeah.
Your voice is little feeble, ma'am. Can you just?
No, okay, I am right, sir. Section 275.
Thank you.
Section 275. It's a bar of limitation for imposing the penalty. On bare reading of the provision, there is no limitation for initiation of the penalty, but at the same time, the penalty proceedings can be initiated along with the assessment proceedings. The penalty can be imposed within the end of the financial year, or the penalty can be imposed within 6 months from the date of the initiation, whichever is later. So the time limitation fixed by the Act is 6 months within 6 months after the initiation of the penal proceedings, or the end of the financial year, whichever is later. Next slide. Now let us see the CBDT circular. There is a confusion saying that whether the assessing authority can initiate the penal proceedings. To put an end to the confusion, CBDT came with a circular saying that the penalty has to be initiated only by the Joint Commissioner. Assessing authority can recommend to the Joint Commissioner for the initiation of the penal proceedings if the assessing authority found that any violation of 269 SS or T in the assessment process. Next, please. Now let us see the 40A. The expenses are payments not deductible in certain circumstances. 40A3 is relevant in this section. Suppose when the assessee is not entitled for any deduction in the expenditure when the assessee taken or accepted when the amount exceeds 1,000 rupees by way of the Finance Act 17 with effect from 1/4/2018. Next slide, please. Rule 6DD. This is a national provision for the above section. It's not relevant. Next slide, please. Originally, there is a prosecution in the section 276 DD. What the section says is there is a fine equivalent to the sum of the loan or deposit accepted or taken. There is an imprisonment for 2 years also there. Then 276E for the violation of section 269T. The provision has been omitted in the 89. Now, I formulated the 5 questions. I'm sorry, to explore the potential issues in this section. What is the time limit as per section 275 for imposing the penalty under section 271D? Whether the journal entry is covered by section 269 SS, whether advances covered by section 269 SS, whether the provision of section 269 SS read with section 271D and 273B will apply of genuine transaction, whether mere existence of genuine or bona fide transaction is sufficient to attract relief under section 273B of the Act, or whether it has to be established the account of some bona fide reason the assessee could not get loan or deposit by account payee check or account payee bank draft, demand draft. These questions will be answered by T.R. Sandal Kumar with supporting rulings and other rulings. Over to Sandal Kumar.
No, I'm just unmuting him.
Thank you, Pratyu.
Yes.
Thank you, Hemlata, for taking us provisions of section 271 1D as well as 1E relating to levy of penalty. These two sections are the enabling provisions for the levying penalties against the contraventions of section 269 SS, that is taking loan from one person above 20,000, and 271E, against which a penalty has been levied as against the section contravention of section 269T. Now, no doubt in it, these provisions are been there from 1981 itself. As usual, this was being challenged before the Madras High Court by one of the famous cine actress called as Vendiradai Nirmala, alias A.B. Shanti. This matter was being there before the Honorable High Court of Madras, and the constitutional validity was being upheld in favor of the assessee. Jayalakshmi, can you please take my slides?
Hello?
Jayalakshmi, my slides, please.
Sir, this is the only slides of this. 1 second, sir. Just Prithvi, can you just forward me the PDF version of sir's slides, please?
No, I already sent it by email.
So I didn't get your mail, sir.
I've gotten only Hemlata ma'am's mail, sir.
No, in fact, I sent both my slides and Hemlata's slides to you. Okay?
To whose ID, sir?
To Jayalakshmi.
Just a second, sir.
Anyhow, what is the 269 SS? 269 SS says that whenever there is a loan or advance which exceeding 20,000 by cash, that is violation of Income Tax Act under section 269 SS. The main idea to bring this provision into the act is to only to curtail the black money transaction which has been happening everywhere in the industries itself. The same thing, if the repayment of loan is been there above 20,000 in cash, that is a violation of section 269T of the Income Tax Act. That is also where penalty is been leviable. So this is the this is about the total about this 269 SS and 269T is concerned. Jayalakshmi, the first slide, please. The facts in that case of A.B. Shanti alias Vendiradai Nirmala is a case that she received about 4 lakhs and odd by way of cash from the party where she has been associated with, namely ADIMK. So that was been found during the course of the search, and it was been brought to tax for the violation of Section 269 under the Income Tax Act. That was being challenged by the assessee before the Madras High Court. And in fact, there was one more provision was also being there, that is called as Section 271DD. That is that for any violation of this 271D, even imprisonment to the extent of 2 years was also is being there. So that made them to challenge it before the Madras High Court, and the Honorable Single Judge during that time has held in favor of the assessee, and department has challenged that matter before the Honorable Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court, it was in May 2002, held that the provisions of Section 271D is within the is not violative of Article 14 of the Constitution, and they held as follows. The object of introducing Section 269SS is to ensure that a taxpayer is not allowed to give false explanation for his unaccounted money, or if he has given some false entries in his account, he shall not escape by giving false explanation for the same. During search and seizure, unaccounted money is unearthed, and the taxpayer would usually give the explanation that he had borrowed or received deposit from his relatives or friends, or it is easy for the so-called lender also to manipulate his records later to suit the plea of the taxpayer. The main object of Section 269SS was to curb this means. As regards the tax legislation, it is a policy matter, and it is for the Parliament to decide which manner the legislation should be made. Of course, if it should stand the test of the constitutional validity. Thereby, the Honorable Supreme Court has upheld that the provisions of Section 269SS is valid in law, and it is not violating Article 14 of the Constitution. Next slide, please. Jayalakshmi, next slide, please. Yes, now it is the question of limitation. Normally, when an assessment is been taken place, assessing officer will complete his assessment, make some additions. While making such an additions, when he come across there are cash loans have been availed by the assessee, or repayment of loan is been done by the assessee to any other person, then the question of invoking Section 269 will be there. But however, he can refrain his additions only to Section 68 or 69 is concerned. Now, for levying the penalty provision, it has been given to the assessing officer. Normally will be an income tax officer or an assistant commissioner or a deputy commissioner only. For levying this penalty is concerned, it has been given the power to the joint commissioner or an additional commissioner. Provision says it's joint commissioner. Sometimes joint commissioner who is holding for more than 4 years will be called as an additional commissioner. So only that two authorities have the power of levying this penalty under Section 271(1)(d), 271D or 271E of the income tax is concerned. Now the question of limitation. Who has to initiate the penalty and who has to levy the penalty? No doubt in it, the assessing officer, while completing the assessment, when he come across such a violation is been done, he has no power of initiating this penalty. However, he can recommend it to the joint commissioner saying this is the assessee, this during the course of assessment proceeding, these are the violations have been found to be. So initiate the proceedings under Section 271(1)(d) or 1(e) respectively. He will recommend it to the joint commissioner is concerned. And the joint commissioner, taking recommendation of the assessing officer is concerned, he should initiate the proceedings within a reasonable period of time. And when the moment when he initiate the proceeding is concerned with the issuing of a notice under Section 274, then the time clock will start, and within 6 months thereafter, he should complete the penalty what is been levied, what is to be leviable. If it is exceeding the 6 months period, the concern of the entire penalty itself goes off. This is what has been held by Honorable Supreme Court. It is in the case of CIT versus Hazira Brothers, where it has been held that penalty, bar of limitation for inspection general, assessment year 93-94 to 95-96. Penalty imposed on assessee was set aside by High Court on ground that the provisions of Section 271(1)(d) and 1(e) were invoked after 6 months of limitation. Whether the outcome of the judgment of the High Court was to be sustained, held yes. So thereby, here is the case, no doubt in it, it was been initiated within the, it was not completed within the period of 6 months. Thereby, they said that it is by hit by limitation of 6 months, and thereby Supreme Court held that the penalty itself is being knocked off. Next slide, please. This is the slide relating to Grihalakshmi. This is 6 months of limitation not to be reckoned from the date of assessment. Here is the case. The time limit, what is to be stated in this case is that assessment order was being passed on 6th November 2017, and the penalty order was being passed on 29th July 2008, was beyond the period of limitation period. Yes, yes. So this is the case where they held that though the assessment order was been passed in November 2007, but the penalty along with that assessment order, the assessing officer has informed the Joint Commissioner also to initiate the proceedings, and he initiated the proceedings and completed the proceedings by July 2008. That is almost about from the assessment order, if you can see that almost about 8 months everything has been done. In that case, the Honorable Kerala High Court has held that the initiation of the penalty and the completion of penalty is good in law, and thereby they held in favor of the assessee. It is thereafter the circular referred by Hemlata was also been passed by Central Board of Direct Taxes. So it's making it very clear that the assessing officer, whoever completing the assessment, should inform the Joint Commissioner concerned, and within a reasonable period of time, the Joint Commissioner should initiate the proceedings and as well as complete the proceedings within 6 months period. So this is the main case law where Kerala High Court held in favor of the department, which caused the issuance of a CBDT circular to that extent. Next slide, please. This is here is a case. It's in the case of JKD Capital Finance Limited, Delhi High Court. Here is a case that the assessing officer has recommended for initiating the penalty proceedings by December 2007. However, having receipt of that recommendation, the additional commissioner has initiated the penalty proceedings on 12th March 2012, that is after 5 years period, but however completed the penalty by 20th of March within 8 days period itself. There the Honorable Delhi High Court said that a reasonable period is to be taken into account. When the assessing officer having made a recommendation in 2007 itself, within a period of 1 year or something like that, he should have initiated. Having been initiated after 5 years period, they held that the entire proceeding itself is bad in law and thereby quashed the penalty proceedings in favor of the assessee. Next slide, please. Jayalakshmi, next slide. This is a case of Calcutta High Court. Here, it is in the case of Narayani and Sons Private Limited. This is a case where the assessing officer thought that he himself has the power of issuance 274 notice for 271 1D, and he himself has initiated such a notice. And following that, the additional commissioner issued a fresh notice for levying 271 1D penalty. That has also been said to be bad in law and held against the department. This is the case of Calcutta High Court. Here, the case is that notice, the assessing officer issued the notice in February 2006. Himself, he has power only to make a recommendation to the Joint Commissioner for issuance of penalty proceedings, but not issuance of a notice itself. This is the landmark judgment as far as Calcutta is concerned, which is in favor of the assessee. Next slide, please. Then, now a very important question is also been arising. There are two types of assessments are there. One is called as 143.1 assessment, which is called as summary assessments. Summary, it is not even an assessment. Whatever the return filed by the assessee, whatever the claim made by the assessee, without scrutinizing any of the things, except any arithmetical error or TDS is not being properly credited in its account, that will be looked after by the assessing officer, and 143.1 will be passed. For example, an assessee makes a claim of filing of a return claiming that 5 lakhs as his income, and he has paid about 56,000 as the tax, and he is entitled for a refund of about 12,000. Now, looking into the facts of that case, the assessing officer will go through, nowadays it is by computerization only, that computer will go through the things and found to be the 5,46,000 is correct or not, and whether TDS is also been reconciling with its account, it has been credited in that account or not, it will verify it. When if the assessee is entitled for refund, this 12,000 will be straight away given to the assessee without any scrutiny of any of the records. Whether in such a situation, can they levy about 271 1D or 1E was the question before the Honorable Court, High Court in Punjab, Haryana. There they held that 143.1 is not a regular assessment order. Hence, the question of going through the books of account, whether there is any violation of section 269 SS or 269T does not arise, and the assessing officer cannot recommend it to the Joint Commissioner for invoking the penalty provision, and thereby they held that whenever there is a summary assessment is being there, the question of invocation of penalty itself does not arise. So this is the judgment as far as this provision is concerned. So it makes it very clear that there should be a regular assessment by an assessing officer. Wherever he found that there is a violation of 269 SS or 269T, then he can recommend to the Joint Commissioner for invoking penalties. Then one more case is Delhi High Court. It is in a case of a search assessment is concerned. This is relating to the block assessment, which is no more existing now. From it was being there up to 2000, from 1995 to 2003. However, there also they said that block assessment, the question of this provision may not be applicable. Thereby they held against this, but just for academic purpose, this given this judgment also for our reference. So next slide, please. Now, no doubt in it, the assessee has borrowed a loan. There may be some circumstances which made him to avail a loan. Take it for the instance of now Corona is also been there. Now, many of the banks is not been functioning, and that cash transactions also is been curtailed down. And for an emergency need of a business purpose, if the assessee is required to take a loan from somebody else, in such an emergency, he has been proved before the court of before the assessing officer is concerned, which talks about in section 273B, a reasonable cause, business expediency, is been clearly proved by the assessee before the assessing officer. Then the assessing officer, then the Joint Commissioner can dropping of levying penalty in this case. One of the such cases is the Bombay High Court. It is in the case of CIT versus Motor Constructions Private Limited, where the director of the assessee company who utilized reason, here is a company, penalty has been levied in the case of the assessee, Motor Construction Private Limited. Whereas the managing director of that company, he had some undisclosed income of his own, and that money he's routed it through the company's name, and thereby in the assessment of the company, they said that there is a violation of 269T was been there, and thereby 269 SS and 269 SS was been there. Thereby they levied the penalty under section 271 1D. There the explanation given by the assessee is that I am a firm. It is not the firm's money or unaccounted money of the firm is been done this one, but whereas the managing director, his undisclosed income has routed it through the company name. Thereby they found the reasons given by the assessee is found to be correct, and if at all it cannot be assessed in the hands of the company, but should have been in the hands of in the assessment made in the hands of the managing director, this should have been done. Thereby they deleted the penalty in the case of the assessee, namely the construction company. Next slide, please. This is a case from our Madras High Court itself. Here is also a construction company. It's a partnership firm where partners are there, more than 2-3 partners are there. One of the partner, for the purpose of payment to its laborers and also for small-time suppliers of goods, he required money which he borrowed it from his father. One of the partner who has borrowed the money from his father for the purpose of disbursing, saying that a business expediency. Even in that case, our Madras High Court has held that it is not proper in the way. It should have been borrowed by way of a banking transaction itself. Thereby, they held that they have justified that the levy of penalty is correct in law. Here, the case is that it received the amount by cash exceeding 20,000 from father of partners to make payments to suppliers and laborers. It is justified cash receipt taking plea, the laborers and suppliers insisted for cash payment. Whether, since necessities of making payment to laborer or small suppliers in cash cannot be accepted as a good and justifiable ground for receiving cash by assessee, imposition of penalty by assessing officer on assessee was justified. So here, nothing has prevented the partner to receive the cash loan. Instead of cash loan, if he could have taken it by way of a banking transaction, it's a check from his father, transfer it to his own account, could have made this one. Having not done and made it through cash transaction, there Madras High Court held that justified that the levy of penalty is correct in law. Next slide, please. This is also one more our Madras High Court judgment itself. It is in the case of 5-Star Marine Exports versus DCIT. During the course of assessment proceedings, there were about 41.95 lakhs of cash receipts were been shown, which has been explained by the assessee, saying that this is nothing but they received it from 7%, which is nothing but the trading transaction to purchase raw materials, and that was the submission given by the assessee before the assessing officer. But there, when it is a trading transaction, is that nothing prevented the assessee from making the transaction through the banking channel, and he has not even explained that the business expediency arising, is there any continuous holidays that have been there in between, that prevented him to make the payment by cash, cash loan or whatever it is. There, Madras High Court also held that the levy of penalty is correct in law. With this observation, in fact, the CIT appeal said that when it's a trading transaction, there is no question of a levying penalty for that observation. But trading transaction is not been proved beyond doubt before by the assessee. That is the observation of the tribunal, saying that however, it is noted that the assessee was given an opportunity to substantiate the genuineness of parties and claim made by them the transaction related to trade alone, but it failed to establish the same. So, having not been properly explained about the trade, that is business expediency of the assessee, then tribunal restored the penalty, and that has been confirmed by Madras High Court, stating that there was no distrust situation for assessee as to take loan in cash, since it was either their own cash in their own case, and that they had sufficient cash during the relevant time. Whether in the aforesaid circumstances, improved order passed by the tribunal levying penalty was to be upheld. That is how the Madras High Court also held against the assessee, taking into the reasonable cost explained by the assessee. Next slide, please. Now, in my books of account, there are some entries are saying that there is a loan is been given to another party, but it's only a journal entry what is been done through it. Whether in such cases also 271D or 271(1)(e) can be levied. This is in the case of Trent International Finance by the Bombay High Court, there where they have held that the loan or deposit has been repaid by debiting the account through journal entries. It must be held that the assessee has contributed the provisions of section 269T. Held yes. Assessee was engaged in share trading business. It had taken loan from Investment Trust of India. During the relevant assessment year, it had transferred some shares to the said trust. Instead of repaying the loan and receiving the sale price of shares, both parties agreed that the said amount, that is the loan and the sale consideration, is to be set off in their respective books by making journal entries. Whether assessee has repaid loan or intercorporate deposit in contravention of provisions of section 269T, held yes. However, in the absence of finding to the effect that the repayment of loan or deposit was not bona fide transaction and was made with a view to evade tax, penalty under section 271(1)(e) could be imposed for contravening the provision of section. There they also said that held yes. So here, mere making of a thing also is not enough. They have to prove it further also. The journal entry is also relating to the business transaction. Next slide, please. Here is another contra judgment which says that mere book entries is not sufficient enough to initiate penalty under 271D. Here the facts of the case is that It is in the case of Worldwide Township Projects Private Limited, which is also a real estate company. In turn, this assessee is getting the bunch of lands from a company called PACL, and in their books of account, the assessee showed the PACL as a sundry creditor in its books of account. And in turn, the PACL has purchased land from various small assessees, and in turn, he is making the payment by check or demand draft to the original owners, and it's pooling out the all lands to the assessee here, namely the Worldwide Township Private Limited. In the books of account, some liabilities has been also been shown in the books. Whether this will amount the contravention of section 269 SS, there Delhi High Court held that no, it is nothing but a business transaction only. The question of invoking and levying penalty under 271D does not arise, and held in favor of the assessee. The next one, please. Next slide, please. Now, in fact, the second proviso to 269X SS itself provides that if a cash loan, even exceeding that the 20,000 is being received by an agriculturalist, then the question of levying penalty under section 271D or 1E does not, or repayment also does not arise. To this extent, our Madras High Court, it is in the case of Ranchi Injection Molders, where they have held that the loans were being taken only from an agriculturalist, and in that case, it is below 20,000 also. There, our Madras High Court has held that the question of levying penalty under section 271D does not arise, and held in favor of the assessee. Next slide, please. Now, this is the case of Vasan Healthcare Private Limited. There was a search in the case of the financier who used to give only by cash mode, even it is in lakhs and crores together. He requires some security for that, in the sense that when it is a big company or something like that, based on that security, he used to pay only by cash mode itself. And the repayment is also been insisted by the financier, saying that it should be only paid by cash only. So at the time of borrowal itself, he will pay with deducting the interest, and as well as the repayment also to be paid on the full principal amount, something like that. That was the modus operandi of the financier. But however, he had the capacity of giving a cash loan per day to one person itself, more than crores also. So it was the practice of the assessee company to avail loans from the financier to meet out its business expediencies, namely the payment made to the staff, doctors, and suppliers, and other things, because it has started making multiple units of its own franchise shops also, that required him to make a lot of payments by cash itself. Thereby, that made the managing director of the company to borrow the loan from the so-called financier. There was a search in the premises of the financier. There it has been unearthed that the lot of cash transaction, that is for a period of 5 years, to the extent of about 140 crores transactions were being there. That is receiving of a loan and a repayment of loan to the extent of 140 crores was being there. So there were some additions pursuant to the search is being completed. There were some additions were being made in the hands of both financial as well as that of the assessee before here, namely the healthcare company. Pursuant to that, because of the cash transaction exceeding 20,000 and a repayment of loan is also being exceeding 20,000 is being there, the then assessing officer has referred the matter to the Joint Commissioner for levying of penalty, and the assessing officer also has initiated the penalty and levied the penalty. In fact, the case of the assessee is that as a managing trustee, individual, he borrowed the money from the financier. There are two companies belong to that managing director. One is Vasan Healthcare, and Vasan, another is Vasan, another company is also there. So he's making both payments to both the companies together by way of cash itself. No doubt the financier insisted that it should be paid only by cash. He give only by cash, and the repayment is also by cash. But the managing director has received the cash and again paid the same cash to the company itself. and that is also been entered into his books of account, saying that this is the loan for the purpose of disbursement to my staff, nurses, and other things, whatever it is, it has been recorded in their books. Now the claim of the assessee is that, in fact, the department has levied penalty not only in the hands of the borrower, that is the managing director, but in the hands of the companies also is been levied. That has been questioned by the assessee before the court that it amounts to double taxation. Then it was been argued before the court that the provisions makes it very clear, be that it is 269 SS or the levying penalty levying provision. 269 SS starts with the word, no person shall take or accept from any other person. So it talks only about person, not assessee or whatever it is. Person is been defined in subsection 31 to section 2 of Income Tax Act, which means that an individual, an HUF, or a body of individual, or firm, or a company, body of individuals, or anybody else. So, an individual managing director has borrowed the money, borrowed the loan from the financier, and he has paid it to a company, A company, and as well as he paid it to the B company also. So no doubt in it, the assessing of the Joint Commissioner has levied penalty both in the hands of the managing director, the quantum of money transaction exceeding 20,000, both in the hands of the managing director, as well as in the hands of the A company, as well as in the company of B company also. So this was been taken note of by the, this was been explained before the honorable judges also, and that has been well appreciated. And they said that the levy of penalty in all their hands is corrected law, taking into the account of the provisions of section 269, it talks only about a person. That is, no person shall take or accept any from any other person, loan or deposit. So thereby they sustain the penalty levied in the hands of all the individuals. And now I believe that that is a subject matter of appeal SLP pending before Honorable Supreme Court. This is a very latest Supreme Court or Madras High Court of 5th February 2019. I've been told that it is a subject matter of SLP pending before the Honorable Supreme Court. So thus, any transaction, loan transaction exceeding 20,000, it will attract the provisions of section 271D or 1D is concerned, provided if the assessee could able to explain under section 273B the business expediency or the emergency or urgency what made him to avail the cash loan is concerned, that will be there. The question of levying penalty does not arise. This is so the idea behind is only to curtail down the black money transaction as well as the cash transactions. I think in future days, because of everything is through online and other things, these penalties may not be required to be invoked by the department. So that is my sharing of my judgments before you. Thank you. So Prithvi, now we can go for questions.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much for taking me through the question. So participants, now the floor is open for questions. You can raise your hands or you can just send a message so that we can take up your questions. Mr. Satish Sundar has the first question. I'll unmute him.
Senthil and Hema and Senthil, very good of you to have explained this position under 269 SS and 271T.
Yes,
you said there is only the Joint Commissioner can impose a penalty.
yes,
Correct?
Yes,
And you've also given the limits. Is there any discretion left to the Joint Commissioner to impose a lesser penalty than what is mandated?
Yes, that is 271, 273, 273 provisions makes it very clear when the business expediency is being proved beyond doubt.
Okay.
Then the Joint Commissioner himself has the discretion to drop the penalty itself. It is the burden duty of the assessee to prove the business expediency or what are the other circumstances made him to borrow the money.
That's what I'm wanting to know. Is there any limit to which he can impose a penalty, or is there a
No, it is no
uncertain-
such a discretion either to levy or not to levy. That's all, sir. If it is
And
to
he can-
levy, what are the amount that has been taken? For example, the cash loan is 70,000. Then deducting this 20,000, 50,000, the penalty is to be levied. Sir.
Okay, thank you. That's what I wanted to.
The
Yes.
sum equivalent to the loan or deposit accepted. Equal amount. Penalty is equal amount.
Okay.
Suppose even in such an instant, for example, 3 lakhs loan is been availed.
Yes.
And 1 lakh in between cash, 1 lakh is by way of check also is been there. To that extent, the housing officer can drop that 1 lakh and the remaining balance alone only he can levy penalty.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And there is one question from one of the friend asking that agricultural income includes horticulture and other incomes.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
that is also been totally exempt from the purpose of income tax. So the question of levying penalty contravention of 269 does not arise in such an agricultural income. Be that horticultural income or any other income arising from produce itself,
Yeah.
it will not.
So thank you, sir. So before we take on the next question, I'm just going to change the settings a little bit. I'll mute everyone, then everyone can unmute themselves.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
1 minute, sir.
Hello, sir.
Participants, you can unmute yourself and ask the questions.
Hello, sir. I'm here. Sir, just I want to understand how to understand the banning of unregulated deposit schemes act 2019 under the ambit of section 269 and the penalty section. Which are quite clear. How to understand the banning of unregulated deposit schemes act 2019 under the ambit of section 269 SS under the penalties. Thereupon the penalties.
Can you just explain unregulated deposit, what it means exactly?
Sir, I have typed it. If you don't mind, sir, I have typed it. Sir,
No,
actually,
what
there
is
is a
it,
banning. New act has come now, sir. There
that is what.
banning of unregulated deposit schemes of Act 2019, sir. Actually,
Being
they
a
are
new
trying to
act,
regulate for different.
this being a very new act,
Hello.
I think it would not have been
Okay.
yet put to test. But we need to see
Okay,
the
sir,
provisions
okay.
of that act itself. Sir. 2009 being a 2000 very new act, we need to search what are the
Yes,
provisions.
sir. It's a new act.
But however, there are some exemption is been given if it is through the post office or banking channel
Yeah.
or government things. Some exceptions is being carved out in 269 SS as well as in 269 T itself. Sir.
Second provision deals with that. Second provision of both the section deals with that.
Okay. Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks.
Swaminathan, any questions from you?
The general actually not the question what asked by the person is that he says that the question which was asked by him is it audible?
Yes, sir. But a little
Yeah.
not good.
Now is it audible?
Yes, it's good now.
In fact, actually he has asked us for an unregulated cash deposit. See, if he deposit the amount which is not accounted. See, because the 269 SS talks about if you borrow a loan or deposit.
Deposits.
Or specified sum also there.
Advance or loans.
Yeah.
Unregulated deposits.
Yeah.
Definitely that sum will also be come under the provisions of 271D penalty.
Yeah.
Okay.
So even if you make a deposit, that will also come under the 271D penalty. And if the repayment is also made by way of cash, that will attract 271T penalty, which is contravention of provision of 260.
Yes.
That's
Okay.
what I want to clarify.
Good.
Anyone else who has any questions to ask?
I just want to clarify this one. If suppose if a person gives a loan less than 20,000 rupees in a day, every day he gives a loan of less than 20,000 rupees, will I have contravened the provision of section 269 SS or not? Just want a clarification.
The penalty does not depend on the assessment proceedings, actually, that. You just see the provisions. Second, you just see the 269 SS. Suppose I received a loan by way of cash previously, subsequently another loan that can be taken together. That is the section says.
Yeah, it is an aggregate of the total amount.
Yes, that's what aggregate of the amount.
And moreover, it is in the case of this Vasan Healthcare also. Though the assessee could able to prove that it is for this business expediency, namely for payment to its staff and other suppliers and other things, but it was been argued by the department saying that it has become a recurring in nature. Nothing has prevented to deposit in his account and then disburse it to its staff and other things. So being habitual in nature, it was been argued. Thereby, the court also convinced that and upheld the levy of penalty not only in one assessee hands, as in all the assessees' hands, the penalty has been confirmed.
No reservation in respect of
So only business expediency, it has been proved, then it will be accepted, but it should not be recurring in nature.
But in respect of 143(1), we refer one judgment actually that only after the 143(3) alone that assessing officer can recommend. So, but I have some reservation. In course of sorry?
I have the same doubt. I just refer to the judgment you had argued.
Yes.
In the case of Shivanyanam J.
Yes, I have some, tell me. Tell me.
So, in that case, it was argued saying that 143(1) and 143(3), there is not any kind of a difference.
Okay.
Reassessment, even though it is against a 143(1) order, has been ordered that still it is considered to be an assessment.
Yes.
Can't be raised before the against Punjab and Haryana court.
That
ground. I was just thinking about it. I just your order.
But moreover, I just having a reservation. Suppose 143(1). Suppose assessing authority can get a information from third party. That is also empower him to invoke the provision 271(d). That is my other view. It is not necessary for the assessing officer to invoke 143(3). After that, only the penalty cannot be levied.
Two questions.
Sir, I need clarification from you, sir, because you are the one who are referring to that, sir. Senthil Kumar, sir.
Because my only thing is that no doubt in it, after a completion of an assessment, it has to be referred to the Joint Commissioner for invoking 271(d) or 1(e) is concerned. In that case, when the prima facie assessment is being done, AO has not an opportunity of looking into the books of account. In another proceedings or something like that, whenever he comes across, to say, but it's a debatable issue as far as it is been concerned. Now it has been pending before our Honorable High Court.
Yes, it's a debatable issue.
As far as Punjab Haryana is so that I cited slide number 7 or so. It is in the case of that Manohar Lal Kakarlal, Punjab Haryana held that in such a situation it cannot be invaded. So that is the only ruling I could see that in favor of the assessee.
Just want to
however, it is a debatable issue
I just want to
before our court also.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's in the chat box.
Sorry?
Ask about some gift.
See,
there is one more question is that gift received by cash and used in the business. What about that? Gift, who has given the gift that we have to see? And here the term that they have used only loan or deposits only. Such transactions only is been violation of section 269 SS and section 269T. So gift, it has to be proved before the assessing officer how the gift has been given. It is not the same his own money through the way of gift through his son-in-law, daughter-in-law or some other sources. That has to be proved. So the AO will look into that transaction of gift, and if it is found to be genuine, then question of not referring to the Joint Commissioner does not arise. When it is not so, then he will make proper addition in the hands of the assessor.
Senthil, one small clarification in this one. See, in fact, he has stated about as a gift. So 269 SS as well as T will not be applicable because it is only for loans or deposits.
Yes.
For a gift from a father will never come under 269 SS and T. And one other clarification I just want to give it to you. Whether an assessment is a prerequisite for a penalty under section 271D or in E, I feel that there is no requirement like that.
Yes, penalty cannot be dependent upon the assessment.
Because if I am going to complete the assessment under section 143.3, I will not be able to take up it as an undisclosed income and tax it at the rate of 30%.
Exactly.
Rather than an assessing officer will need not to refer it. In fact, a joint commissioner, after going through the books of accounts, definitely he can read because it is 100% of the total amount of loan received or repaid.
Yes.
So I feel that an assessment order need not be required for initiating of a penalty under section 271D as well as 271E.
You're right, absolutely right.
But only that Punjab Haryana is in favor of the assessing, but yet the similar issues have been pending before our Honorable High Court. So it's a subject matter of debate, and let us see the outcome from the Honorable High Court or Madras High Court also.
So there is another clarification from Gokar Nation sir who wants to ask. He has put that in the chat box, sir.
Mine is a proprietary concern. I got cash from my father as a gift and uses the same for my business purpose. Will it affect under the penalty clause? Sir, that you require to prove that the source of gift also by your father, sir. If your case is taken for assessment, you have to prove the gift from your father and your father's source for such a giving the gift to you. Once if it has been proved, then the question of addition does not arise and the consequential penalty also will not arise, sir.
Sir, one further clarification with Swaminathan.
Yeah, tell me, sir.
See, Joint Commissioner can suo motu initiate penalty proceeding under 269 SS violation is what is the argument of Mr. Swaminathan. I want to know what is the cause of action for that. First of all, there should be a cause to find out that there is a violation of 269 SS, which is only at the stage of assessment. How could the Joint Commissioner initiate action on that?
Sir, the Act contemplates that there need not be an assessment also, sir.
Yes.
No, for initiating proceeding, he should have something before him, like a FIR or intimation.
No, suppose he received information from the third party that the particular assessee received a loan by way of cash. That also empowered the Joint Commissioner to initiate the penal provision, sir.
Supposing it is not there, on his suo motu, he comes to know whether still he has got powers.
No. What I'm saying is, assessing authority can recommend even the Joint Commissioner initiate the penal proceedings.
That is true. I am saying when assessing officer is not recommending or there is no private complaint, still can the Joint Commissioner proceed to invoke his powers?
Definitely the powers are with the Joint Commissioner, sir.
Yes.
And it is not that a penalty for initiation of a penalty proceedings, there should be an assessment is not at all a prerequisite condition. If a person, any person, violates the contravention of receiving the amount more than 20,000 rupees as loans and deposits, or repays the amount by way of loans or deposits, contravening the provision of section the 20,000 rupees, definitely the Joint Commissioner is empowered to levy a penalty under section 272.
Suo motu he can do.
But how do you come to know about all this?
Swaminathan, Balaji here.
Yeah.
Mr. Vishwanathan's question is not the power to levy penalty.
Okay.
It is power to initiate. Without any proceeding before him, can he initiate is his question.
So because what will happen?
Definitely he under 271D or as the case may be E, the additional commissioner or joint commissioner has got power to levy penalty.
Absolutely.
Without any information, can he make an assessment like is his question?
No, he can. In fact, if the recommendation from the assessing authority.
No. There is no recommendation because it is a 143(1) case.
Okay.
He does not have any information. I am putting a hypothetical question.
Okay.
It is a 143(1) case. He does not have any information. Still, he wants to examine. Can he issue notice? Ask the assessee to come and produce books.
No. Before I am initiating the notice under section 271D penalty or E penalty, I should have an information about that. What are the amounts totally we has contravened under section 260?
So that is precisely the question of Mr. Vishwanathan.
That is absolutely. I must possess that one. Without possessing that, a joint commissioner cannot issue notice under section 271D as well as 270. Definitely, he must have a possession of that. The total amount of contravention should be there. I cannot just give a simple notice. I should specify that what is the amount which you have been contravened by this position. I have to issue a show cause notice that these are the days you have made a loan, or these are the days you have made a deposit, or these are the days in which you have repaid the amount by way of cash exceeding more than 20,000 rupees. That I have to specifically mention in the show cause notice how much I have contravened. That is very, very important, for which a joint commissioner will issue notice. That is what I have thought. Is it right, Balaji, or it is for Senthil to say those things?
Swaminathan, can I? Hello? Swaminathan? Bhaskar here. See that audit report, tax audit report, auditor has to point out the violations under 269 SS and T. In the audit report, suppose the auditor has pointed out that so much amount has been received from so and so in violation of 269 SS or repaid in violation of 269 T. Simply based on that, the joint commissioner can initiate proceedings without even making an assessment.
That's true. Correct.
Suppose one more situation where in the income and expenditure account or in the balance sheet, the assessee himself writes cash loan from Swaminathan 1 lakh. Then the joint commissioner is entitled to so moto issue notice, because that itself is the material on the basis of which he can initiate proceedings.
Bhaskar, you could have taken Senthil's name, not
So Bhaskar sir is batting for the revenue. So now Bhaskar sir is batting for the revenue. Huh?
No, that is I'm clarifying the situation where there could be so moto of initiation.
Yes, yes. And there is one more question from
Senthil.
Yes, Prabhakar, solunga.
He is batting for the revenue. That is why he is not coming on video.
No. As a president of Revenue Bar, he wants to justify the things and thereby he is explaining, enlightening everybody.
No, as a prudent person supporting revenue, he must show his face.
And
Bhaskar sir, you have given examples where the additional commissioner or a joint commissioner gets information. But the issue for discussion is without any information
actually,
can he issue notice, call for the records, and do an assessment in this respect?
No.
Basic, very basic. Another such question was only that without there being any provocation from the assessing officer or an assessment, can you do it?
Correct. To my mind, it cannot be. If there is any other view, I would like to hear.
Sir, one more issue. Hello?
Yes, please.
Yeah, well, see, immediately after the demonetization, there are so many deposits into account, etc., etc.
Yes. Yes.
How is the income tax department treated all those deposits?
Okay.
I just want to know, just out of curiosity.
Under section 68, cash credit.
The best person to answer is Mr. Bhaskar.
Under section 68, Balaji.
No. It is not 68. That's why I said Mr. Bhaskar should answer this. Because there is quite a few writ petitions. That's why I'm asking him to answer.
See, if it is treated as income, then the provisions of the violation of provision 269 SS and T does not arise. Only in case the assessing officer accepts it to be a genuine loan, then comes the question of violation of taking the loan other than by negotiable instrument. So, if an assessment has been made taxing that income under 115 BBE, then 269 SS and T is out of it.
Out of it, yes.
That answers your query, Mr. Sundar?
Can you come again? I'm just saying about huge deposits which are made into accounts.
Sir, I'll put it, sir. Sorry. Can I, sir? Bhaskar, sir.
Yeah, please.
Carry on, Balaji.
During demonetization, what has happened? Many assessees have deposited cash. What the department largely did is they asked from each assessee as to what was the book balance as on 8th November. Because demonetization was announced on 9th November. 8th November, what was the cash balance as per book? They first arrived at that. If the assessee had deposited during demonetization period, the cash as was available as on 8th November, it was accepted in some cases. I will put with a rider in some cases. And if they deposit in old currency, in fact, from the bank, the department received information as to how much was deposited from now 9th November till 31st December, how much was in old currency, how much was in new currency. So the issue now boils down to only the old currency. On old currency, how much was deposited, the department got the information from the banks. And if it exceeded the balance as per books of the assessee as on 8th November, they have considered the excess as something which they have not earned in the course of ordinary business and considered that as income from other sources and taxed that at a higher rate based on the section which Mr. Bhaskar has referred to. This is as regards cash balance in excess of what was recorded in the books as on 8th November. But in many cases, the department also took an innovative view that as on 8th November, the assessee could not have had so much cash. Meaning that the books or accounts are fudged. It may be with reason, many cases without reason. The department has considered that the books of accounts as on 8th November, and for all other purposes, they have considered the books of accounts. Only for the purpose of arriving at what is the cash balance as on 8th November, they considered that the books of accounts are not right. And the department had considered the sales is artificially boosted prior to 8th November. And therefore, the cash balance for which they had in some cases compared what is the sale during October in this year and sale in the earlier year, which may not be the right criteria for whatever. But the department made such analysis. In some cases, even without analysis, they had rejected the books and said, we are not ready to accept that you are holding so much cash as on 8th November. And the deposit that you have made, you claim to be making based on this cash balance is not acceptable. We will accept only, say, 25% of this cash balance. Rest 75%, we will tax it as unexplained income you have earned and at the higher rate. These are all the matters which were before or challenged. Many assessees, instead of filing an appeal, they had challenged it, or after filing the appeal, they had also challenged simultaneously before the High Court in writ, saying that the assessing officer did not consider the material that the assessees have placed to establish what is the cash balance, etc. They are all matters pending before the High Court. In some cases, interim orders are also given.
All the best.
But in any case, one thing that should be appreciable is that the demonetization in this respect did not. Hello. Hello. Balaji, am I audible?
Yes. Go ahead.
In any case, as citizens, we should be happy that the demonetization did not fail in this respect. Though it has taken time, the department has brought in many cases the cash balance or indiscriminate cash deposit into tax. Of course, it will be a matter for litigation where the Assessees Council will have its paradise, their paradise. But nevertheless, they are brought to tax at the first point.
In fact, the question of section 269 SS and T will not be applicable because
because it is income.
Yes, they said that it is the outstanding balance what has been there for 3 or 4 years. The moment it has been demonetization, it's been announced that the old currencies is been given to me. Thereby, he said
the bank.
I only recall Mr. Arun Jaitley's statement at that time when he was questioned whether demonetization failed. He said, "Oh, it has failed. Let's wait." That's exactly what is his reply. And 3 years down the line, in the assessments, rightly or wrongly, they are brought with high-pitched assessments, and it is the assessee will face his take its call to take it on litigation, lose, win, etc. But definitely at stage 1, department has won.
Sir, thank you very much. Taking my question back, I have a supplementary question. Thanks to Mr. Bhaskar, who has given some explanation to that. My supplementary question is, supposing the assessing officer accepts my explanation and a proceeding by the additional commissioner or joint commissioner, what is the sanctity will be there? See, therefore, the assessment is the basic document without which I think the joint commissioner cannot initiate proceedings. Please comment.
Mr. Viswanathan, you give a statement to the assessing officer. I took a cash loan of 1 lakh from T.R. Senthil Kumar.
Yes.
Assessing officer accepts that version. Okay. So that part is over. So it will not be treated as your income.
But violation section.
In fact, only after the assessing officer accept that as a genuine loan, there is a provocation for initiation of penalty proceedings.
Yes.
If the assessing officer has not accepted and treated it as your income, then the question of 269 SS and T violation cannot be looked into at all. Because he has accepted it as a genuine loan, then he has to see whether there is a technical violation or not.
So therefore,
that the joint commissioner alone can do it. Assessing officer can never touch that aspect at all.
Yes.
Sir, to Vishwanathan sir query, even if an assessee has not filed a return of income, penalty is leviable under section 271D as well as 271E. There need not be written at all. If an assessee, see the provision very contemplative, very clearly says that have I contravened the repayment of loan or I have deposited more than 20,000 rupees. I need not to file a return of income. Penalty is still leviable. Is my
180 finally precisely saying penalty not depend on the assessments.
Yes.
General, there is one other query. Please clarify that.
I want to have finally one query raised. Let others complete.
Any other queries? You can unmute yourself and.
General, there is a query from Dawn Associates, Mr. Basco. They have stated I have received 3 crores in cash as loan and repaid a check over the period of 5 years in his order. Is it this order? It is in the chat box. Please clarify that.
3 crores in cash and repaid by check. In fact, the question of taking the 3 crores by cash, that will attract penalty under section 269, violation of 269 SS and 271 D is leviable. D is leviable, but repayment being through by check mode, the question of 271 T will not be arising. That penalty will not be levied because it has been routed through checks only. So the 3 crores will attract penalty. The repayment of 3 lakhs will not attract any penalty. Now Bhaskar sir has come to light.
Good evening, all of you. This is.
Sir, there is one more question from Mr. Janardhanan from Madurai, that if a loan has been taken for 50,000, the penalty is it be levied for the entire 50,000 or only for 30,000? It is only for 30,000 because the first exemption of 20,000 is been available for every transaction, so that 20,000 will not be charged. Balance 30,000 only, 271D or 1E is also to be charged.
Now TR Sandil Kumar is batting for the assessee.
No sir, this is
Here we are neutral. We are not the assessee council or department council, actually that. It only debate.
I differ from TR Sandil Kumar. It will be on the entire 50,000.
I also differ from that. It is only for the
entire 50,000. Because section says a sum equivalent to the loan or deposit accepted or taken.
In fact, I could find one judgment in favor of the assessee, but however, I think that I not brought that in the slides.
Ajanta Inc. That is sole decision of Rajasthan High Court.
I'm not very sure about that. Other day I found that such a judgment also in that, but it was saying that it's only after deducting the first 20,000 balance to be levied.
At least you may circulate in the group, sir.
Yeah, sure.
Certainly, sir. Very shortly I will circulate